All right, let's talk about one of the simplest, but also one of the most powerful tools in modern software development, the user story. It's this tiny little idea that really did change the game for how teams think about building products. So let's dive in and see why.
First, I want you to think about this question, because it's one that probably keeps a lot of us up at night. Why, after all that hard work, all those hours, do we sometimes ship features that users, well, they just don't use? It's a huge, frustrating waste of time and energy.
And so often, the real problem isn't the team or the tech, it's the process. We get completely buried under these massive, super detailed requirements documents. And what happens is, these documents basically build a wall between the folks building the software and the people who actually need it. The focus ends up on just filling out the paperwork, not actually understanding the problem. And that, right there, is where user stories come in to save the day. They are all about a huge shift in philosophy. We're moving away from those static, dead documents and toward living, dynamic conversations. This slide really shows you that change in mindset. The old way was all about a checklist of features, tons of documentation, and these siloed handoffs from one team to the next. User stories completely flip that on its head. Now the focus is on delivering real value to a person, having a conversation to figure out the best way to do that, and making sure the entire team is in collaboration. It's a whole different ballgame. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. See, bringing user stories into your team isn't just about using a new template. It's about changing the culture. It's about saying, hey, we value clear communication and a shared understanding more than a perfectly written, rigid document. Okay, so what does one of these great stories actually look like? Let's pop the hood and deconstruct this simple but really powerful format. Okay, so at its core, every user story has these three parts. First, this tells you who you're building for, what their role is. Then, I want, this describes their goal, what they need to do, and listen, this is crucial. It's the need, not the technical feature. And finally, my favorite part, so that. This explains the benefit, the value they get out of it. Here's a perfect example. As a part-time sales associate, boom, we know exactly who we're helping. I want to filter inventory items by category, crystal clear what they need to do, so that I can quickly find products for customers. And there it is, the direct connection to a real-world, valuable outcome. It's simple, it's clear, and it keeps the focus right on the user. And let me tell you, that last part, the "so that" clause, that's the secret sauce. It is absolutely non-negotiable. It's the why. It forces the entire team to stop and justify every single thing they build and connect it directly to a real user benefit. This little phrase is what stops us from building those features to nowhere. So we've got the basic format down, but how do we go from just writing good stories to writing truly great ones? Well, turns out there's a simple little checklist for that. I mean, following that template is a great start, for sure. But what's the difference between an okay story and a story that really empowers your team to do amazing work? What are those key characteristics? The answer, thankfully, comes from a really simple and memorable acronym, INVEST. It's a fantastic framework that was developed by Bill Wake, and it's perfect for checking the quality of any user story. So, INVEST stands for independent, negotiable, valuable, estimatable, small, and testable. Let's quickly run through what each of those really means. First up, I is for independent. You want to ask, can this story be built and delivered all by itself? When stories are independent, you get so much more flexibility to move things around and prioritize what's most important right now. Next, N for negotiable. This is so important. A user story is a promise to have a conversation. It's not a contract that's been signed in blood. The best solutions come from the team talking it through together. V stands for valuable. It has to deliver a clear, obvious benefit to a real person. If you can't easily explain the so what for the user, you probably shouldn't be building it, period. Then we have E for estimable. This just means the team has to be able to look at it and give a rough idea of the size. If they say we have no idea how long this will take, that's a red flag that the story is too vague and you need more conversation. S is for small. Is the story small enough that it can be completed, start to finish, within one sprint or development cycle? Keeping stories small is all about building momentum, getting fast feedback, and lowering risk. And finally, T for testable. You have to be able to prove that it's actually done. There should be clear conditions that tell you, yes, this works as expected. Because if you can't test it, you can't really be confident that it's finished.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's just quickly clear up something that trips a lot of people up. What's the difference between a user story and a use case?
Honestly, the difference is pretty simple when you break it down. A user story is all about the user's need, it's the why. A use case, on the other hand, is usually about the system's actions, it's the detailed how. Stories are meant for the whole team to rally around a goal, while use cases often get way more technical. Both are useful, they just serve different purposes. And at the end of the day, everything we've talked about, the template, the invest checklist, it all points towards one single ultimate goal. Because the true power here isn't in the template itself. The format is just a tool. The real magic happens in the conversations these stories create, the shared understanding they build across the team, and that user-first mindset they help grow. So I'll leave you with this one question to take back to your team. Take a hard look at what you're working on. Are you just building a list of features, or are you actually delivering value?